What's up, guys? Today we've got another episode. I believe this is Civilization Restart, episode 15. And, yeah, we're going to be getting right into it. So last time we saw another coalition happen right after the last one against Israel. This one was actually valid because Israel was trying to take Somalia, and that would go really badly. So yeah, we see another coalition. And, so that's basically what really happened. But first, we're going to get into something. Now, this Red Arabian team has been on Israel's side for quite a while. They've been fighting the Orange team and the Lime team, and I believe the Purple team. They've been fighting, against them on each other's sides, since basically the Red Arabian team's creation. And basically, the Red Arabian team is actually going to decide to invade into Israel. And this is because ever since the coalition against Rome and Germany, they realised that they were going to have to do a coalition against Israel. They realised it was going to have to happen. So that's why they didn't go out, all out on it. And they realised that Red Arabia could be very helpful. And while Red Arabia has been helping Israel, they promised Red Arabia, a bunch of lands, a bunch of lands here in Israel, a bunch of lands in the Orange team, a bunch of lands in the Green team, in Caspia, just so long as they turned on Israel eventually. And we actually see that happening as they start to push in, and seeing as their forces were stationed along the border, they, swiftly take a lot of land from Israel, and this comes as a surprise, and they're really annoyed, as they also didn't have this island taken away from them. But, let's get away from this big coalition. We actually see that India set up, some forces in their colony. Yes, they've had these troops stationed in New Guinea for quite a while, and no one really knew why they were there. But it's to invade the, British Borneo country. British Borneo. As they swiftly send their forces down and take a lot of this land. And Britain's like, what? Because they can't really do anything. They've got all their forces here. And they're really weakened, and there's no way they would win a fight against India, the second strongest country in the world. But just like that, we also see that Southeast Asia, that country, these guys, pretty irrelevant. They start sending their forces into it, taking this northern tip of Borneo and taking here until eventually we see that Borneo declares their independence from the British tyranny and reforms their old country. And in order to try and stop this, we see that all of the British forces in Israel just straight out retreat. They're like, hell no, we're not doing this. We didn't get paid enough for this. And they all just leave, which is not good for the people fighting Israel, but it's excellent for Israel. This means they can take away their forces from the British side, and they can push back the Turks, or the Ottomans, depending on what you want to call it, as they push them back all the way there, while also pushing Pakistan back a bit, and having to take back some of Egypt. And Egypt's kind of annoyed about this, but you know what, I get it. They had to do what they had to do. And Egypt, they didn't really mind, because they got enough resources from there. Because now they've managed to get enough territory to push the Greeks completely out of their country. And they even started their own mini-offensive into this Greek land that they've taken from Israel. Now, obviously, based on the colour, you can tell they're not actually giving it back to Israel. They're just taking it for their own. And this goes pretty well, as Greece wasn't expecting it. And, yeah, they're getting pushed down North Africa, basically. But we see that while the Turks may have been pushed back, the Kokistani weren't pushed back nearly enough, as they take major land gains, stretching all the way down to the Purple Country, and taking a lot of valuable land from Israel. And seeing this whole distraction and how India's bothering with Borneo and stuff, North China's like, you know, it'd be a really funny idea to just invade into these guys. So South China, like, wasn't expecting, like, they had no warning or anything, just suddenly gets a giant, like, Mongolian fleet. I'm gonna name it Mongolia from now on. Just rush into their country and start sweeping the coast, taking massive amount of land. But this isn't the only place they strike, because they also decide to go for Korea. You know, they've got a long history with Korea. They've always hated Korea. So when the opportunity presents itself, they quickly take a bunch of land nearing right outside the capital, because no one's really expecting this, seeing as the new government change, being a democracy, they joined their alliance. Obviously this triggers the Square Alliance, meaning that Japan, Southeast Asia, South China, India, and Korea, they're all fighting North China. But back here in Israel, we see that they start to invade into Rome. And that's not, the best for Rome, as they push up right near the capital. And, Rome is like anarchy, like they're very unstable. And they have a section of their population break off. As we see that all of this land here goes over to a rebellion group fighting against Rome. And they're actually going to make their own advances, as after setting up their own government and controlling their own part, they have a giant encirclement where the Roman troops cannot flee anywhere, and eventually are all killed by the troops stationed in this Green Rebellion team, as they also push down to the capital, which is Rome. But Rome holds out. They're not going to surrender. They're going to try and keep fighting, because some may see them as a villain, because, they had a giant empire and were, fighting a bunch of people. But they don't want to be seen as that. So, yeah. And this buys Iberia just enough time to start redoing their advance into North Africa, as they go all the way over to Tunisia, as they start working their way around the African coast, and actually even take Sicily, where the Israeli troops have moved up into Rome, and have a minor offensive, taking, the boot bit of Italy. And, yeah, that didn't go too well. They are instantly pushed out, and starting to get pushed back. But Greece sees this as an opportunity, as they also start their retaking of the North African coast, as they eventually meet up the Iberians and start sharing forces. This is exactly what Israel did not want to happen, but, you win some, you lose some. And Egypt is actually going to allow this more. They keep all of their claims they have over the Israeli land. They're not going to give that back to Israel, but they just sign a peace treaty with the enemies, and the enemies are just like, we don't want to fight you, so just, sign peace with us. And they even make it so that their troops can go through. They're allowing Greek and Iberian troops to go through there, which, straight shot to the capital. And, while all of this is going down, Red Arabia continues to do their own thing, meeting up with their current borders. And, that's a lot of land to have. As we also see that Somalia starts pushing back up to their capital, as they also make a breakthrough, taking back all of this lost land that they had to Israel, as they start their first counter-offensive. Well, not the first, but their first invasion of Israeli land. Being able to take all of that. And, whoops. And it's working out pretty well. They're taking over some of the claims that Britain had just had, because the troops have moved out. And yeah, Somalia's doing pretty good for themselves now. Alright, so we had some technical difficulties. But with that, we're actually going to see that Mongolia is going to take some of the, Siberian land, because, this invasion isn't easy to maintain, so they gotta get, some resources. And so they take Siberian land to try and get, natural resources from the north. South China's gonna do their own thing, because first they start to fight back, taking a bit of their land back, but it's kind of useless. So instead they decide to go for plan B. And that is invading into Mongolia. Just as Mongolia did to them, they start taking Mongol land. And the borders are looking pretty strange. But yeah, South China is losing, I would say. They've lost more land than they've actually taken. But yeah. But we also see that Japan does their own thing, as they decide to invade from Sakhalin, as they take this whole coast down here. And they eventually meet up with where Korea is getting invaded from. And they start to, re-liberate it a bit, while also taking some of, the surrounding land. And Japan's actually doing pretty good off for themselves. But we also see that India isn't going to let this slide, so they start their own invasion. And this goes pretty badly for Mongolia, as India starts to push up, and they push up to this lake, and they take all around there. And they take all of this land pretty quickly, which, Mongolia really didn't want to happen, because that's, a lot of land that they can extract people from and resources from. But it's not, their main population bit. It's just a lot of important land. While this is all happening, Australia has been playing their own thing, as they decide to invade into, the Indian colony of the island of Papa, I believe it is, as they quickly, take all of it, along with Sulawesi, and India's colony is gone. And, this really sucks for now. Southeast Asia and South China, because are we next? But we see that if we go back to over here, we see that with the help of the Caucasistani front, that the Turks go back to invading into Israel, as they meet up and take a lot of this Middle Eastern, Mesopotamian land. And Caucasistan actually starts really nearing the capital, and this is really bad for Israel, because once they lose their capital and all of this land, that's pretty bad for them. And we also see that this Red Arabian team continues to push up, meeting up with the Orange team here, as the Orange team agrees not to attack them. And not looking too good for Israel. But that'll be all for today. Hope you enjoyed, and goodbye.